Breath in, and we're live. Welcome everybody to Primal Man Project Seeking Counsel. We've had a bit of a hiatus, so welcome back. I have with me Danny Sleswick. Have I got that pronunciation right, brother?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, awesome, man. Danny, nice to have you, man. Nice to chat with you. We were chatting a little bit before the show started, and it's going to be an exciting chat. I'm really excited to dig into what's going on in your mind and the amazing world of these ultra athletic events that you run. But let's do a quick intro. Well, firstly, just for those who might be watching on your social platform, my name's Jason. I run a movement called the Primal Man Project, where we help men get happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. And as part of that, you were introduced to me by a friend, Sean, who we had on the program a little while ago. And I thought, what a great opportunity to dig into this amazing world that you're a part of. But tell us a little bit about yourself personally.
Yeah, so I'm a dad with two boys, just becoming teenagers, so 12 and 13. My wife and I have been together for about 25 years. So, so more than half my life. I run a cabinet making business here in Brisbane.
Okay.
And obviously I run ultra marathons and endurance events in general. Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite event that you've run, and why?
Look, there wouldn't be one event. Lots of different things for different reasons. Sometimes even at the race itself can be boring, but the group you're with can be fantastic. Some of the scenery, some of the places. This year, my wife and I were in New Zealand running at Tarawera, and just the whole experience of that event was awesome. Racing Tassie that we love is. So
is your wife involved in the event as well, or is she there in support?
So she runs more than me now. Yeah, she was crewing for me, and I started to crew a race or two for her, and I said, returning the favour, and we started to count it. I think she's about 10-1 that she's crews for me, so I still owe her a lot.
You've got a big debt the other way, a big deficit. Yeah. And we were talking a bit about what you eat and drink, and I really want to dive into that because some of that's fascinating. But for those who maybe don't know what obstacle races are, what are some of the bigger names events that people would know that you would?
Yeah. Well, Tough Mudder was the one that made it a name. Tough Mudder is a great event. In Australia, Spartan races, like the Spartan, the number of events they put on and they created more of a community. People would travel from event to event more so for Spartan races. And there's an Australian brand, True Grit, which is done fantastically. It's an Australian brand, and they run Australia's only 24-hour obstacle race, which is a great event.
Okay, wow. And your claim to fame was coming first in an event you said was in Brisbane, the world's longest event.
Yeah, so the longest event, so it was a 200-kilometre obstacle course race. And that was, called Taurus. That was held in Brisbane. They didn't get another event off the ground. So it's, it was just a one-off at the moment. But about 3 or 4 years ago, they got that off the ground, and I came first in that race.
Wow. And how many competitors were in that one?
Very few. That tends to happen. The bigger the race, the less competitors there are. And I think I was saying to you, it's a challenge. A lot of the great events, the organisers do it for the love of it. It's you don't get a lot of starters, and some logistically they can't get a lot of starters to these events because it's hard to look after people if they're travelling, 100 kilometres or longer.
Yeah. So our mutual friend who introduced us, Sean Harold, has put the first question in, asking, "Dear God, why?"
Why?
So that's a good global question and a good place to start. Why the fuck would you put yourself through this incredible and arduous and brutal experience of these really, really long ultra events?
Look, at a lot of reasons. Mostly, I guess.
Yeah, just kidding.
I guess mostly you're just challenging yourself, and you know, if you get comfortable running 50 kilometers, you go, oh, let's try and run 75, or let's run up these huge mountains. There's something great about setting a goal for something that when you commit to it, it scares you and you don't know if you can do it. You've got to train like hell to be ready to turn up and to, you know, to actually complete an event and finish something that, you know, a year before you thought you couldn't possibly do. It's a great, you know, it's a great feeling. It's a great way to expand as a person. And there's emotions you go through there that are hard to replicate in other parts of your life.
Wow. So there's so many places we can go with that. And I think where I want to start is, how strong a motivator is it when you've got a big event looming and you know that to make it through that event or to be competitive, you've got to really knuckle down and actually get your training hours in? How much of a driving force is that?
That's 100% driving force. Yeah, even for me, you know, I can, and right now I've got no events signed up for, and sometimes, you know, I just committed a couple of weeks ago. I said, oh, mate, I'd go and pace for him, and all of a sudden it's like, I better get stuck into my training and, you know, get out of bed early, go for some running, get my fitness back up so that I can keep up with him. And mate, on my screen, you've cut out. Great live broadcast.
Danny, I'm so sorry. That's a story about someone else doing that to me, and then 5 minutes to do it to you. Sorry, brother. I hope you were able to ad lib in there for a little bit.
Oh, it was awesome content. Yeah, the best you've ever seen. No, well, you didn't see it. Too bad.
That'll be great.
Pearls of wisdom everywhere.
Oh man, that's gold. All right, so fingers crossed we're still all good. Please help me where you were when I dropped you like a sack of potato.
Yeah.
Where did we leave off?
Oh gosh, I can't remember already.
So we were talking about the motivator. So the big chunky goal that when I'm talking. What I do is I'm a coach. So I work with men who want to transition and transform their lives. And one of the things that I work with men to do is to get a mission, to find and identify their mission. And the way it was described, Kerwin Ray describes it really well. It's a big, hairy, audacious goal, something that scares you. And to me, it feels like these adventure races are just a fantastic mission to be on at any stage. And you mentioned just before we dropped off that you don't have one enrolled right now. What's that like?
Look, it's not great. Especially for me, I've been transitioning to looking at more. It's like I said. I was in New Zealand early this year, so I don't want to complain too much, but. You know, I was meant to be in South Africa last month, and I wanted to do some running over there. And to me, I see now going to events as a great way to travel, to experience another place. As I've already touched on, my wife will now run. So we were both in New Zealand together. So that was, you know, a lot of fun to go there together. And yeah, so not being able to travel makes it less interesting. You know, you can still go and run 100 miles around Brisbane, but that's just running 100 miles. It's not the same as going somewhere great and going on an adventure.
And competing in an event and getting that feeling of crossing the line, you know, getting on the podium, as obviously you've done. So as a motivator, I can imagine it'd be very powerful to live under that sense of always training for an event.
Yeah, look, I think it's it just becomes part of what you do. You know, it sometimes having an event, you know, that some of the events I'll do mightn't play to my strengths. So, coming from obstacle course racing, I think when I signed up to started transitioning to trail runs, I didn't realize how hilly some of them were. I think my second ever trail run was 75 kilometers, and I thought, yep, that's okay. And it turned, it's up Mount Buffalo. It's they call it a sky marathon, and the hills are too steep to run down. I wasn't experienced at running downhill, so they're just too steep. And I'm going, oh, is this running? So yeah, there's definitely events that I'll do that play on a weakness of mine, that then it's okay, I've got to practice running up and down big hills. So it keeps you training, keeps you motivated, keeps it interesting, keeps you on your toes, all that sort of stuff.
Amazing. Sean has asked, what are the conversations you have with yourself during the runs?
Yeah. You go through, a real roller coaster ride emotionally on these things. So sometimes you're in a really meditative state, I guess would be the best way to say that. You're really, if you said when you meditate, you're just trying to focus on your breathing. Well, it's really similar when you're running a long way. You're just trying to focus on your breathing. You're focusing on where every foot's landing, because you tend to be running on uneven ground and trail running. I don't run tracks or road running. So you're just really focused on that really fundamental thing for a long period of time. So it's a very relaxed, meditative state. You also, for a big event, you've got to make sure that you're almost constantly problem solving. If your foot's starting to rub a bit on funny on your shoe, it's like, well, I've got to solve that problem. I can put up with that for 10 minutes. I can put up with it for an hour. But, if I keep going for 20 hours, that's going to be a big problem. So, you're often solving little problems if your shoe's not right, if your pack's not right, if you've stuffed your toe or tripped over, sometimes there's things like that. But, of course, it goes off. Sometimes you're having bad thoughts, sometimes you're having good thoughts, sometimes you're trying to tell yourself good things. What
are some of the things you tell yourself?
Look, sometimes I'll have a little mantra that I might say. In obstacle course racing. So I mentioned Tough Mudder being one of the big brands. So there was a race that I went to. It's World's Toughest Mudder. So it's a 24-hour long Tough Mudder. The one I went to was out in the desert outside Las Vegas. And it was my first 24-hour long race. So now when I'm running, I'll start telling myself, I'll probably be lying to myself when I first start, and I'll say, I'm feeling good. Because I'll start this when I'm not feeling good, and I'll say, you know what, you're feeling good, you're looking good. Right now I ought to be in Vegas. So I'll just be looking good, feeling good, ought to be in Vegas now, and I'll just keep repeating that little mantra to myself. Sometimes, you can just start appreciating, hey, I'm here, I'm in New Zealand, or I'm in this great place, and this is where I want to be, I'm so lucky to be here. I'm, just trying to really appreciate that sort of thing. So you're deliberately telling yourself things that'll make you feel better. So you spend a lot of time on that as well. And then thinking about what I want to eat when I get into the pits, or what I want to eat next is always a good thing.
I was just picking up there that it sounds like you want to be in a positive mindset. So that seems pretty obvious. It sounds like you want to be talking into yourself the things that your coaches or support or crew would be saying to you. You're looking good. You're feeling good. You're looking great. You're looking great. So it's almost coaching yourself. Yeah, for sure. You're definitely trying to control your own emotions. Yeah. Give us an example. Tell us a story of where you've gotten really low and what that looks and feels like for you on these incredibly long events. Yeah. You would have heard people talk about hitting a wall when they're talking about, say, I tend to say if you're running a marathon, you hit a wall, and
say for me, and you tend to hit that wall when your body runs out of that easily available energy. So, you know, your glycogen stores and that sort of thing, your body can go through a real low when it stops getting that, because it's obviously it's not sending glucose to your brain and you get really low. When you get used to that, it's pretty easy to push through that. As soon as you pick up on it, I better have a gel, I better, you know, and you just feel like you can push through it. But definitely in a really big event, you do hit a bigger wall. You do hit another one where it's beyond that. You know, your body's exhausted. You really start noticing that your body's breaking down. You start hearing that voice again, I'm damaging myself. I'm, you know, this isn't worth it. Why are you doing this? What have you got to prove? And you really start getting to that point of it's really you're just hitting that next wall where I'd say it's not your body telling your brain that it wants to stop. It's your brain telling your conscious it's time to give up. You know, that second wall. It's pretty hard to get through that. Problem with a big event is, you know, if it's a 24-hour event, if you go through 15 minutes of wanting to quit, you can quit. So you can't, you know, and you stop. You come into a pit on some of the obstacle races doing laps, or come into a checkpoint where you've got crew and you say, I can't go on anymore. If they can't change your mind in 5 minutes and get you back out, you know, there's no chance an hour later, you go, oh, you know, I'm all right now, I'll go back out. You know, you've quit. So you only got that window to get yourself right again.
So what are some of the things that you do in those moments where you do have that negative self-talk? You talked about having positive self-talk in the front end, and that's a good plan, and that's going well. And then you get to the wall, and then you push past the wall. Then you get these almighty fucking monstrous walls in these enormous events that you run, and you're in the hurt locker. You've got body pain, you're mentally exhausted, and then you hear the voice telling you, what are you trying to prove?
Yeah.
What's the strategy for resolving and pushing past the biggest walls that you come up against? Yeah.
Look, you've got to know your reason why you're there before you get there. You can't stop and question yourself at that point. You know, you've got to know, and I'll talk to runners before they do an event, why you're doing it. And if someone would say, oh, I'm just out to prove I can do something, or I always say that wall, that second wall you hit is bigger than you. So if your reason is just you won't push through it. You know, you always hear a lot of people doing these world records, and they're doing it for a charity, or they're doing it for a major cause that's bigger than them. They're willing to damage themselves permanently because their reason why is bigger than them, you know. And so you've got to have a reason that's bigger than you.
What's your
my reason? Yeah, look, it is the example I'm setting to my kids. Definitely, I sort of, when my kids were probably about 3, 4, you start picking up on that things that, oh, my kid's doing that thing that I do. And you start to realize, oh, my kid's not going to grow up to do what I tell them to do. They're going to grow up to be like me. And at that sort of point, you start shifting, going, well, hang on, if my kid's going to grow up like me, then I've got to be what I want for them. You know, if I want my kids to be, I say to people, if you say you want your kids to be happy and healthy, well, you better work out how to be happy and healthy. You know, I always say, if I want my kids to grow up chasing their dreams, well, then I've got to chase my dreams.
Wow.
You know, if I want to give up on myself in that moment, what am I going to teach my kids? If I can push through that, if I train for something, if I set a goal and work hard and achieve that goal, and my kids see me do that, they go, yeah, I saw Dad do that, and I saw him train to do that. That's how you achieve goals. And my kids learn how they can chase their dreams. And yeah, so I do. And look, I to push myself through, I will be hard on myself, harder than I need to be to push through that. And I'll say to myself, I'll just say it, Danny, if you quit in this moment, your kids are going to be quitters. If you push through this and keep going, your kids can push through hard times and keep going. And in a conversation like this, I know I'm being too hard on myself, but in that moment, you probably want to be hard on yourself to just push through. The reason to keep going is big enough that you're willing to hurt yourself. You're willing to push through. I've definitely hit point in races where I just got to a point of going, I'm just going to keep leaning forward, and if my feet don't keep landing in front of me, I'll just land on my face. My feet have just got to keep coming forward. I can't make them, but I hope they do, because I don't want to land on my face. And I just keep, all I'm doing is leaning forward, it's, and just keep going. So, look at, and you need that, and then you try to turn that into a positive. Great. Now what am I teaching my kids? Now what goals are they going to chase? What are they going to succeed at? And really try to put a really positive spin on that without dwelling on the negative side of that.
That's so powerful, Danny. And look, I think that says a couple of things. I'm really taking a lot from that. There are certain ways that I show up as a dad where I'm encouraging and asking my son to do things, but may not necessarily be consistently doing it myself. And, I think that's amazing and very powerful, very logical. They're not going to do what you say, they're going to do what you do. And it hit me recently. I run retreats for men. So we do immersive, in-nature, experiential retreats. Actually, something probably that you'd love. It's we go and we push ourselves physically, but then it's what happens emotionally and mentally when you're at the edge and you've really pushed yourself. Who do you become and how do you show up, and what does that show up for you in life? And then we have processes that really explore that and really get deep. And I was packing up one night for the retreat the next morning, and my son, came to say goodnight to me, and he said, "Dad, have fun waking up at 4 a.m. so you can go and change some people's lives." And just the goosebumps get me now just talking about it. And it's I really resonate with that motivation of it's what the example that I'm setting. It's the example that you're setting for your boys. That's really landing with me as a dad of a boy a little bit, a son who's a bit younger than yours. How have they exampled the way that you've shown them how to be?
So my oldest son got into running pretty young. He joined actually my wife at park runs. So he went along to park runs. I think in his second park run, he beat my wife, and it was probably about 8 or something. So she wasn't as fast then as she is now, but he was really good. One night, friends were training actually for the True Grit 24-hour race. And my wife was working, so I had my young kids with me, 8, 9 years of age, so I couldn't go to this all-night training session they were doing. Well, I couldn't train with them, but I went along to support them, and my son joined in for a run with them. And he ran, it was down the beach, back again. He ran a second loop with them, and I think then after a third one we worked out, he just ran 20 kilometres. So I said, "Mate, do you want to do a bigger run?" And I rang around. It's hard to get a 10-year-old kid into a big race, but a race organiser for Survival Run, they had a 25-kilometre trail run, and they said they checked with their insurance company and got back to me and said, yeah, he can do that. And yeah, he went into that event. I ran with him, at I think 10 years of age, maybe. He ran a 25-kilometre race. I think it actually ended up being about 30 kilometres because there was some problem with some course marking. And he was still jogging. He went through a bit of a pain barrier. He was probably around 25 kilometres, and he looked at me, he goes, "Dad, my feet are really hurting." And I just sort of looked at him and going, "Yeah, I know." And he kept jogging, you know, and he just smiled the whole time, ran the whole time. The race organisers loved, you know, him being there. All the runners, the cheer he got when he crossed the line was awesome. International competitor that was there who took out the main race. You know, she wrote a blog about him, and she really took to him. So,
how does it feel as a dad?
Look, it's still my great race highlight was running 25 kilometres with my 10-year-old son. Yeah, massive race highlight. And just that for him gave him, you know, so much confidence. You know, when he went to his school cross country and he found out it's only 2.5 kilometres, and he goes, but I just ran 25, you know, and even his teachers at school, the gym teachers, and they'd just go, oh, mate, that's phenomenal, you know. So that gave him a lot of confidence to know that, you know, he could do that. And it's definitely just everything that goes with that. The fact he's done a lot more park runs than me. He goes to park run a lot with his mum, my wife. He just takes part in different sporting events, and he's a pretty active kid. Most of last weekend, I think he was at the skate park, and you know, he just lives that same active lifestyle that, you know, myself and my wife lead.
It's amazing. What have you learned about yourself in all of these races and experiences?
I think lots. We talked a little bit about some different events. One of the events, different events have had different impact on me for different reasons, but one of the different events was Spartan run a 12-hour hurricane heat. And I spoke to you a bit about it. It's there to sort of find your breaking point. You know, most people don't make it to the finish of the event. It's not necessarily about that. They're out to break you. It's very that military inspired, you know, shouting abuse at you and telling you you're worthless and pushing you to your break. And I probably got to about hour 11 out of 12 and I was broken. You know, they set you up. I'd been throwing up for about 6 hours of that. And it was pretty brutal physically. And I reached that break point, but normally they would pull you out of the event, you know, like as you were going along if you sort of fell behind or that sort of thing. But I think because I was very close to the finish line, I felt like, they didn't pull me out. And I made it to the finish, but I didn't quite feel worthy of finishing that one, if that makes sense. They'd broken me. And I spoke to one of the guys that was the military guys that was shouting abuse at us at the next Spartan event I saw him at. And I said that, he goes, and he sort of just laughed at me. He goes, of course we broke you. Don't you think we could have broke you in an hour if we wanted to? And you sort of realise how tough those military guys are. And I'm going, I suppose. And he goes, but that was the point. He said, you were broken and you didn't stop. He said, if you had stopped, you would have been out. But he said, you were 100% broken and you still didn't stop. You still didn't quit. Wow. He said, so we didn't take you out. And I sort of realised that about myself, that, you know, I do reach that point in a race of being broken, and, you know, I guess in that military sense of just stripping you of all of who you would like other people to see you as. You know, all of that's just gone because it's just raw what's left. You know, they've stripped you down of all of that, and all that's left is whatever's left of you. And I guess to see that person and go, oh yeah, he's not bad, he's not a quitter, he's still kept going, and not being scared of seeing that person again that's, you know, 100% broken. It was a great experience to go through and to learn about yourself.
That's amazing. I'm really fascinated by the point at which your body is actually spent versus when your mind thinks it is. Where do you get to in that dynamic? What's the balance between what your body's capable of and what your mind actually thinks you are?
Look, I I still look at other athletes and other, you know, people and just go, they've shown that just doesn't seem to exist. You know, I've met a guy called the Iron Cowboy. Have you heard of him? No? So he ran 50 Ironmen, full Ironmen, in 50 consecutive days in 50 different states of America. So there was the logistics of you'd finish one and have to get to the other. And, you know, an average Ironman probably takes someone 12 hours. And then they've got to get, you know, to the next state and the next place. And he's, you know, just to see what he just put himself through 50 days straight. And, you know, that it's just insane, you know, and he's sort of just saying, well, what is the limit of the human body? You know, it's I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. It's definitely our mind that limits us. Physically, it draws the line. And, you know, there probably is a point too, as I said, where I do hit at that second wall where you are actually causing damage to your body to continue on. But, you know, you always hear these stories of what people can do when they have to, you know, when it's important enough to keep going.
So for somebody who wants to develop that have to level of motivation, because it sounds like there's a switch, goes from an option to you can't not. What are some of the things that you would suggest it would be a way for us to, for a person who maybe hasn't experienced these types of events, maybe just starting off in obstacle races, how do people develop that intrinsic motivation to get to a place where you have to do it?
Yeah, look, I guess it's I'd always start with the more positive aspects of it rather than you know, I have to at all cost. You know, because I guess that's you know, are you willing to just go out and never trained and do yourself a massive amount of damage just to prove you can run a marathon on no training? You know, it's probably, you know, there'd have to be some real reason why you'd want to do that. Maybe someone chasing you or going to hurt you. I don't know. But so I'd definitely start with a lot of the real positive things of just knowing that, well, actually you can do it. And if you can't do it this week, and maybe you can't do it this month, and maybe it'll take 6 months, but at the end of the day, you can still do it. You know, what that time frame takes to be able to build to that, maybe you don't know, but you can still do that thing. And just to know that you can get there for certain, that you can achieve things that you see other people achieve. You've just got to start, you know, once you know that, you go, great, so what are the steps? You know, where am I at now and where am I trying to get to, and what's the first step, and start taking those steps. The mindset around that, I think, yeah, just knowing, yes, I can get there. Yes, I can work on it. Yes, I can work on my mental strength as I'm going and you know, develop that, as well as developing, you know, maybe the cardio fitness or the muscle fitness or whatever else, you know. And for running long distance, it's obviously your ligaments, your joints, and all of them are developing as you're getting better. But you develop that mental strength in the same way, and just that it just takes time, and you just keep working on it and improving it.
How do you develop mental strength? Just the mental side. If you said, look, my body's on a good nick, but I tend to. How do you develop mental toughness?
Yeah, exercise. You exercise your mental strength, you know. And I guess one of the things I'm considering, and I'll use the term mental strength. Your mental strength is how you think about things. It's the same thing as what your mental health is. But when we talk of mental health, we think, you know, I'm okay. I'm not broken. I'm not, you know, whereas if I said to you, you know, you can get physically stronger or you can get physically fitter, you go, oh yeah, I can. It's like, well, you can get mentally stronger. You've just got to exercise. You know, there's heaps of exercises you can do. You just got to practice them and do them consistently. It's you know, it's it's the same as getting better cardio, the same as getting better muscles, the same as getting better at anything. Just go, no, you can get better at it, and practice to get better at it, you know, to get mentally stronger. Yeah, so, and exercises to get mentally stronger. There's a lot, you know, once you accept that, oh, yes, I can, or what are some of the exercises, you know, you can do. And there's a lot of different ones, and I'd say you've got to use a lot of different exercises, the same as you would if you wanted to get physically stronger.
And what are some of those, Danny? What are the ones that you've used?
Look, obvious ones that people go, oh, yeah, I'm familiar with that would be, you know, visioning. You can't achieve anything without visioning that you can achieve it, which is why I said just know that, yes, that's an actual fact. So do that, vision that you're going to achieve that. But
so what does that look like? So visioning. So this is beautiful. This is actually so incredibly aligned with exactly what I teach people in coaching. We've already talked about mission, the big, hairy, audacious goal, the race being that. Vision is so powerful. What does that look like for you in detail? How are you going about the process of visioning something?
Look, you just spend as much time as makes you feel good imagining, you know, it depends if that's your strength. If that's your best exercise, then use it to its fullest, you know. Imagine what it'll be like, what it'll smell like, what it'll taste like, what it'll, you know, what it'll sound like when you can, you know, even just to go from not being able to run at all to being able to run 5 kilometers or a distance. That feeling of running is a great feeling. You know, it feels great. And, you know, when you're running long distance, that feeling of being able to run and not run out of breath, you know, to be able to have a conversation with someone while you're just running, it is a great feeling. And if you don't know what that is, then just imagine how good would that be, and you know, use visioning to the fullest as a great tool. And you missed all of that, so it was gold.
Apologies on the fact that the internet is being very mean to me today. But vision, I'm hoping that you had a good stream and you were going on vision. So yeah, 100% agree with everything you just said.
Yeah.
So
I'd say that's always like visioning is one exercise.
Yep.
You know, if you don't watch The Secret and go, oh, that's all you've got to do is just have a vision and everything just falls into your lap. It's one exercise you can do to improve your mental strength. Yeah.
Yeah. Sean says it was gold. I'm assuming for whatever he said while I just dropped off again to just, you know, go have a cup of tea, come back again. Yeah, look, I use vision and visualization a lot. And it's the tool that I use to actually get myself out of the construction industry and into creating my own business and to working for myself and to transitioning out of a role as a, you know, well-paid consultant into a thing called a life coach. That, you know, when I told my family, they were like, "You're gonna be a life coach? The fuck are you doing? Can you earn money there? Is that like a real career? Is it a you know?" All of the stories and all the things that went through my head around, you know, what are people going to say? What are people going to do? It all happens, I'm assuming, in relation to these big chunky events. Oh, I'm never going to make it. I don't know how I can do this. This is impossible. And actually just writing it down for me, writing down the name and the number and whatever it was, whatever the target is. That for me, it's the date. So it was actually the date of when I was going to earn a full-time income as a coach that would replace my income that I used to earn as a consultant. And I used to visualize it. I used to visualize the moment and visualize the time. Yep. It actually happened 6 months earlier than my target because I believe, in part, I was visualizing it.
Yeah, yeah. And look, every business is someone's vision. You know, it's and you can't employ 10 staff and get them to do what you want them to do unless they understand what your vision is of where you want your company to be. So anyone that's built a company knows what a vision is and what it looks like, and, you know, for my company, it's written down and people know it. That's the vision. That's who we want to be. You know, it's and you need that to enroll other people on your journey for sure, but also just to keep yourself, you know, on track, you know, of what that vision is and what you're doing to work towards it.
It's incredible how aligned what you're saying is to these ideas that I've had as far as transforming anything. So when I used to work for companies around transforming them from wherever they were, let's say we were trying to hurt less people or earn more money, it was about understanding where you are now, and maybe that's I can barely run a park run right now. Someone was saying here, you know, how do I get started with some of these small obstacle races? It might just be, okay, what's the longest you can run without stopping? You know, in the case of the companies I used to work for, it was they were hurting X number of people and they were losing X amount of money. And when we asked everybody about the situation, you know, a lot of people were in denial. You know, the people that really wanted the change were actually those that realized it wasn't okay where we are. And having this incredible picture of what you want on the other side, this, as you say, this vision, this reality where you are an ultramarathon runner or you are an obstacle race runner. It's a beautiful reality. But how did you know that's what you wanted? How did you come to be in this world, and why was it so attractive?
Yeah, so I guess the first vision was just to complete a race with some friends. Yeah, and it was a tough mudder. It was the first one. Some friends invited me along to it. I'm like, oh, really? You know, do you really want to do that? And you know, and I guess not only did I want to complete that with friends, I didn't want to be the person that everyone was waiting for all the time. You know, I didn't want to be that person. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. And then I thought, should I better go to a gym and you know, get a bit stronger so that I can do this thing? And yeah, it started with that, and then it's like, you know, you get kind of vision. And I have to admit, like, to go from a 40-kilometer race to a 24-hour race was scary as hell. But you know, I at that time I saw World's Toughest Mudder and knew that it was going to be in another year that it would come back again. And I talked to a coach I had, and I said, you know, it scares the hell out of me, but do you reckon I could do it in a year? And he goes, yeah, for sure. So, you know, that was the vision. I was going to, you know, fly to America and run or do a 24-hour obstacle course race. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was that was the vision. And, you know, when you start shelling out money to do it, you start training to do it. It's all part of, that's what you're there to do.
Yep. I remember when I got some advice around starting my own business, someone said, spend some money so it becomes real. I was talking about this concept of building my own business, and they said, invest some money. I was like, what? I can just do it myself. They said, no. Pay somebody who's quite expensive to do a job for you, or invest in something, a piece of equipment, and all of a sudden, rubber hit the road and it was real. So it sounds like something similar. Invest in a ticket, buy a plane ticket to go to the event. There's some skin in the game.
Yeah, for sure.
So what were some of the other strategies you used? So you talked about having a vision. What were some of the other things that you've used to get to this place where you can have achieved these amazing goals? Yeah,
look, a generic term would just be awareness. You know, you started to saying, like, you know, just be aware of where you're at, whether that's at work, that, hey, like, look, don't be in denial. You know, don't be in denial about where you're at. But once you're aware of where you're at and where you want to go, and you're honest with it, it's like, what can I do? And I'd say to look at your thoughts. You know, if you can actually be aware of your thoughts and start going, oh, gee, I'm having negative thoughts, they're not helpful. You know, I think that about myself, or even worse, I've said that about myself. Gee, what I say that I'm really unfit, that's not helpful to say that. You know, and to start changing what you say about yourself and what you think about yourself. It's like, oh, I can't do that yet is a better thing than I can't do that. And just being aware of what those thoughts are, and thoughts, you know, touched on some with you earlier about when I first had to do some public speaking on this topic. And, you know, it was like, well, I could have thoughts that are, I've never done this before, I'll probably be no good at it. Or I could have the thoughts like, oh, well, I'm just talking about stuff that I know about, so I'll just talk about that. Both of them are as true or as untrue as each other, but one of those thoughts isn't going to help me. And one of those thoughts can help me. So if you're aware of what those thoughts are and you're aware of what your vision is, and are those thoughts helping you get your vision, then start, identifying what are negative thoughts and pick yourself up that that's just a negative thought. Identify. You don't have to go to town on it, but if you just pick up, that's not a fact that I'm no good at running a long way. I'm just don't know how to do it yet. Just pick up that it's a negative thought and to start replacing that with positive thoughts and go, gee, I've improved. Oh, great. I've finally signed up at the gym. I always say to someone, if you want to be a runner and you want to run every day, just start by running 10 meters. Then run 20 meters. And imagine just doing that every day. And they go, oh, that's stupid. It's like, well, but then you're running every day, and just get to 100 meters, get to 200 meters, just run every day. And it's sort of
growth mindset, says sure. Yeah. Just having awareness of what we're achieving. I 100% agree with you. And I remember when I was in a place of training consistently in CrossFit, my view was the battle, or if there is a battle, if there is resistance, right, in establishing your routine, if you want to talk about the battle, I know that's not even putting good story into it, but I knew that I'd be over the hump once I put my shoes on. So the shoes were here. They're in my house. I haven't even gotten in the car to drive to the gym. But I knew that if I was out of bed, I was in my exercise gear, and I had my shoes and laces done, I'm in. And I'm out the door. And I'm down the street, and I don't have to think about it. And I'm in the door. I'm at the gym. Class is going. Once I'm there, it's easy. But the first step was the laces.
Yeah.
And they became a metaphor for a decision that I made at a point that I'm going. That's the decision made. My alarm's gone off. I've woken up. My feet are on the floor. Little decisions that get there. It's like you're 20 meters. You just start. Yeah.
And you will, and you'll go like, well, I'm not just going to run 20 meters. Like, well, I've said, put your shoes on, go outside and start running 20 meters. You'll probably end up running 50, 100. You'll run further because you've done the hard work.
Yeah.
You've put your shoes on and gone for a run, or the hard work is getting to the gym.
Yeah.
Once you're there, well, you'll work out. But getting there's the hard thing. So yeah, definitely. Definitely that's it. But obviously,
what are some other strategies that you've used that have helped you?
Look, I think one of the reasons that attracted me to obstacle course racing is it does one of those things that I love, and that is you've actually got to stress yourself a little bit. You've got to face a challenge. But I'd say to people, if you want to build stronger muscles, you don't pick up something heavy and carry it for 12 hours. So if you want to stress your mind, you don't want to be stressed for 8 hours straight. You don't want to have stressful work. That's not helping you get stronger. But if you challenge yourself for a few minutes and then rest, and you keep facing these little challenges, as I said, what attracted me to obstacle course racing, you've got a tough muddy, you got to run through those electric wires. It's like, okay, it's really stressful. You got to jump in that ice water. It's really stressful. Jump off that cliff.
I fucking hate those electrodes, man.
I hate the electricity. Yeah, it never gets fun. It never gets fun. And at World's Toughest Muddy, you're running laps, so you're just. It's not a nice event.
I remember I did my first ever obstacle course race was a Tough Mudder, and it was the full mudder, so I think it's like 11 kilometers or whatever it is, or 18. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're up there.
Yeah, almost 20. And a good mate of mine was a CrossFit athlete. He came with me, and much fitter than I was, and came to the electrodes, and it really separated us. So I was willing to go through. I was willing to get hit, and he just no, he walked around, and yeah, we were neck and neck in every obstacle and everything that we both made it through everything, except for the electrodes. And it was just interesting. It was a real awakening moment for me because I hadn't done a lot of gym work. I hadn't been very fit, and actually I was like, oh shit, I actually have something in me I didn't know was there. I've actually got quite a bit of mental toughness. I've got a bit of grit. I've got a bit of, wow. And that's the bit about these obstacle races that have been amazing. Like for me is discovering parts of myself I didn't know were there. That's
for sure. Yep.
That's been amazing.
Yeah. And I think for women, it's great too. You know, a lot of them, they might not see themselves on par with men in a lot of physical activities. And when they do that really stressful thing or face those challenges, they start going, oh, shit, I can do things, and gee, those guys are scared, but I'll run through there. And, you know, for anybody, we've all got different strengths. And if our strength isn't running or whatever, we might be concerned about that. And I love talking to myself when you drop off. But yeah, for a lot of people, it's like, oh, actually, I'm not scared of that. I do have skills, and I do. So yeah, obstacle racing has been fantastic for that. I'll give a few more tips while you come back on. Other exercise. So I'd say stress as well as relax. The relax is important, but you do need to stretch your mind. You do need to challenge it. I'd say nourish it the same way as you do for your muscles. If you want to build stronger muscles, you got to eat protein. Nourish your mind, like feed it good thoughts. Feed it. Tell yourself good things about yourself. Instead of reminding yourself of that time you were a bad parent, remind yourself of the times you're a good parent. You know, write down a list of times you're a good friend, or times you're a good boss at work, or things that you did. And, you know, time to time, sit down and read all these things that you've done that are good, and remind yourself that you're good, so you can, just nourish yourself with good thoughts about yourself to help strengthen your mind. And let's see. I got an interesting message popping up, so let's see if you come back onto this live stream. Here you come.
I'm so sorry, Danny. This is crazy.
I just gave another 10 awesome tips and you've missed them all.
Oh, that's incredible. I'll get them in the recording. Thank fuck, it's onto my page. I'm the worst host ever. Thank you, Optus Internet Broadband. Best package you can pay for, but fails 3 times in the same show. Danny, this has been the best program ever. And Paul is jumping in with a support question here. Danny, what are you reading at the moment? That's a great question. If you want to answer that, or keep going with where you were beautifully ad-libbing and using your keynote speaking skills.
No, it was good. So reading at the moment, the book at the moment is just an interesting book. Can't even remember what it's called. It's about the evolution of humans. You know, of Homo. It might be even called Sapiens. I think it might be called. Yeah.
Yuval Harari, Sapiens.
Yeah, and just it's actually the second time through, and just that it's interesting, not for any huge reason. It's just a really interesting book, different, you know, an interesting take on it.
What did you find interesting about it?
Sorry?
What did you find interesting about it?
I don't know. I think even just almost this theory of evolution, it's quite interesting. You know, it's that of who evolves and why, and you know, it's, you know, if we talk about that, it's not necessarily the strongest, it's not necessarily the, you know, I guess Darwin had that saying of it's those that adapt the most, but yeah, there's a lot going on as to why different species of humans evolved, and maybe of what our makeup is now. Of we're not just a nice straight line that we might think of evolution. So it's just a really interesting book.
What have you learned about us as a species? What have you learned about the human body? What have you learned about the human mind in all of this? You've got a really powerful insight into, I think, a part of humanity that we've probably lost in a lot of ways. A big part of the theory behind the Primal Man Project is returning men to our design. You're a great example. And if they talk about some of our early evolution, have you heard of the book Born to Run?
Yeah. Yep.
Where, human beings, Homo sapiens, the theory goes, were literally successful as a species because we sweat and we're able to outrun just by sheer distance the large mammal prey that we eventually then end up becoming dependent on. So here we are at the beginning of our evolution as distance runners. And, if you looked at the majority of, Western civilization, majority of the population of the world, and how their physiques are currently set up, are so far from what would be, capable of running really long distances like our ancestors. What have you learned about the human body in this process?
I guess I've learned a lot about the mind, that it can grow and adapt to the body. We're nowhere near willing to push it to its limit. Nowhere near it, as we sort of touched on. That it's capable of so much more than we as intellectually want to take it. I guess what you can do though is that you can evolve, and it seems further than when you're doing it. You go, wow, I can evolve really fast when you're actually doing it, whether that's mentally or physically, or strength. Sean, who's commented a bit, he's quite a strong fella and lifts some heavy weights, and we'll all go, oh gee, I can't lift weights like that. But if you actually start training, it's like, well, actually you can evolve. You can bench press twice as much in no time. It's we evolve pretty quickly. The body evolves pretty quickly when we work on it. Even people that have had bad diets, they get it right and their body evolves pretty quickly. So it's I think that's one thing that I've learned through, and even for me as a runner, I'm not someone that's been a runner since school. Pretty much in my 20s and 30s, I did very little. It was only when I hit about 40 that I really started taking it up as a sport.
I've learned that we are a lot better at receiving a lot more adversity than probably any of us would really understand, especially in the Western world, especially in big city existence. We live, and I'm talking about myself here. I was living very comfortably, in the majority of my life, warm showers, keeping temperature controlled, cool in summer, warm in winter. Feet didn't touch the ground. My feet, unless I was going to the beach, didn't get dirty. Manual labor, no, that's not a thing. And rewilding is a concept that I came upon, not long ago. And this idea that taking us back to ruggedness, taking us back to adversity, putting us under some compression. Really loved and embraced ice baths, and using hot cold in training recovery, and also just as a mental resilience tool. Do you use cold therapy?
Yeah, cold showers. I end every shower, even now in winter, all I do is I'll just turn off the hot water, and when I can't stand it anymore, I'll turn off the cold and get out. And I guess partly that develops your mental strength as well. But obviously you're probably aware there's a lot of antibodies or that sort of stimulates. So it's quite good for our immune system. It's but it's also quite good for our mental strength. It's great. Yeah.
You started to talk about the tools for training the mind, and we went down the path of discussing vision. What were some of the other ways that you've trained your mind?
For a big event, so I touched on a few different exercises when you were gone. You'll have to watch the replay.
I'll have to catch up.
But like I said, for a big event, you know, you really got to focus on. I think it's, you know, start with the end in mind. What is the end goal, and start with that in mind. Why you're doing it, just to be clear on that. As I said, if the why is bigger than for yourself, you know, as I said, you'll hit a wall that's bigger than you at some point. And if it's only doing it for yourself, you won't get through that wall. If you want to get through that bigger wall that's bigger than you, then do it for something bigger. And, you know, and obviously, you know, your business that you're developing in your group that you develop in, it's like you'll push through a lot of adversity because the goal's so much bigger. You know, there's so many more people that are going to benefit from it. So the bigger the reason, the bigger you'll be able to push yourself. You know, sometimes you can focus on how will you be successful in reaching your vision? How will that impact them? You know, how will that affect, you know, for me in a company, you know, how does me being successful in reaching my goals affect the families of the people that work for me? You know, if I've created a great workplace, how does that affect other people? And when you're really clear on, you know, how will you being successful affect others, you know, it's just everything is, those steps just magnifies it bigger and magnifies your own strength. You know, when you really start realizing, oh, gee, I can impact on more people and me being successful, or, you know, that has a positive impact. You know, I spent a lot of time running of pacing and crewing for other friends and talking them through those hard times, and just, you know, because I know that can help them and can help their kid, them as parents and their kids, and you know, it all has that magnifying effect.
The ripple impact, the ripple effect of the work you're doing. Yeah, I've never really sat down to actually think about the onward ripple. I've got a goal of impacting the lives of 500 men this year, 2020. So through men's circles, through retreats, or through coaching, and through programs like this. You know, people that I have an opportunity to interview and talk to, you know, there are people watching tonight that are going to be impacted. You know, I've had people say that they're taking notes in these programs because there's such great wisdom coming from people that, you know, have an opportunity to put into this container to follow on. In fact, one of my regrets tonight is not having a pen, because I wanted to have written down some of the things that you shared tonight. So I'll be going back to the replay, which is beautiful. So yeah, really sitting in the onward impact and the ripple effect to the work that I'm doing. That's really landing with me. What's the impact for you? What's the ripple effects for running these races for you?
Yeah, look, it definitely impacts on me in every aspect of my life. You know, it's you know that if you can get through that challenge, then you can get through a different challenge. Obviously, I run a company. That's a big part of my life. I've got about 20 core staff. We employ a lot of other casuals and subcontractors and other people. So, you know, the impacts on them, to a lot of people, getting a paycheck every week is quite important to them and their family. And, you know, you get to know the people you work with and their families, and, you know, knowing that vision of the business that you wanted to create is, you know, as I've said of late, you know, it feeds a lot of mouths, you know, and you know, for my own family, I don't worry about feeding my kids, that they'll have food, but, you know, to a lot of people, even just that paycheck every week is important. You know, and then, of course, you know, we have vision on how we're treating our clients and the impact it can have on them. And, you know, so you can magnify that out. But it's definitely just knowing how I can deal with a challenge, what I'm willing to do to push through a hard time, definitely has an impact on a lot of other parts of my life. And obviously, you know, business side of things is a big part of that for me.
And I understand you're pretty active in the entrepreneurial community. A mutual friend of ours said that you actually do some mentoring, so you support other business people and help them to grow. how have you learned the lessons? What have you applied from your racing and ultra marathon learnings, and how is that actually applied to teaching other people how to run their businesses, and even your own?
Yeah, I think, well, as far as teaching others, it came up. I put my hand up for a mentoring program, and the guy running it, I said, "Oh, look, I'll put my hand up to be part of it. I don't know if I want to be a mentor or a mentee, but I don't want to do both. I haven't got the time commitment." It was sort of like, "Oh, I'll do it." And this guy was pairing up all these mentors and mentees, and he comes up and it's like, he wanted me to mentor him. And I go, what for? You know, and then he told me what his goals are and what he wants to do. And I go, "Oh, I can do that. I can do that. I've done that in business. Oh, cool. That's great. I can do that." And then just, I guess, knowing that even though it's not something I've done before, I could learn it. And in this, here's a structured mentoring program that I went and studied. This is how you can mentor someone, and just to, you know, do that in a structured way, and to know that I don't have to know how to be a good mentor. I don't have to be even a ton better at them at everything, or have had, you know, the same business they're in. It's like, there's a structure, there's a system to it. You just follow that structure, do the work, follow that thing. And I guess that's come through, you know, how do I get better at training? It's like, well, I get a coach and I'll learn from them, you know. And probably, and I'd actually say that point, something I've learned a lot from business that I've taken to running is, you know, get a coach, get a good mentor. And for that, I've had running coaches, I've had strength coaches, I've had new sports nutritionists, you know, I've talked to some sports psychologists, all of these people. It's like, well, that's what you learn in business. You talk to your accountant, you talk to your lawyer, you talk to all these other people, and you don't need to be the expert. You just got to talk to the experts and do what they tell you to do. So yeah, it's but, you know, to learn that in other aspects of your life, and just know you don't have to be good at that. You can get better at it, and you study it, and you get help, and you follow the advice. You can get better at it, you know, in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I have that analogy that I talk to people. They say, why would I need a coach? Why would I need a life coach? Like, well, if you were, you know, an athlete, would you need a coach? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. 40 teams definitely need a coach. And so, would you, you know, if you were, you know, needing expert advice on getting legal advice, would you go and get somebody who was in? Oh, yeah, absolutely. But, you know, what's the most important thing to living? Oh, it's my life. You know, it's my whole life. It's like, okay, you know, do you think you might benefit from somebody helping you with that? No, I wouldn't waste money on that. No, I wouldn't get a coach. But it's crazy. Like, and I'm a big believer in having a coach in everything. I have trainers. I have people I talk to about my diet. I'm now coaching in how to be a better coach. So I'm in coach training as well as receiving coaching myself. So I get a lot of feedback. I get a lot of help about what I'm, you know, needing to do better. And it's when I operate at my best is when I'm getting a lot of feedback about what I need to be doing, like with plans and details and accountability, and people saying, "Hey, you didn't show up. What's going on?" I had a phone call with my coach yesterday. She's like, "What are you doing? We had a plan and you're not executing on the plan." I was like, "Well, this happened. She's like, She's like, no. We're talking about who the people are that are waiting for the impact of what you're doing. I didn't run this program last week. I got compressed with some other stuff, and I was like, hey, it's okay. You know, it's a weekly program, but I'll just put it off this week." And here am I sitting in this conversation thinking we could have had this conversation last week and it would have been absolutely epic and just as good, just as many dropouts and just as much ad-libbing and just as much value. But, you know, I was in my own stuff. And the thing that pulled me up and out of this was a coach that, you know, that was like, "What are you doing, man? Get back in the game," you know? Yeah. And it was like the person who's crewing alongside you and you're running the race, whether they're pacing or just someone supporting your mindset. Yeah, I think of a life coach like that as well. You know, I'm just running alongside somebody, pacing, saying, "Hey, that's where you said you wanted to go. You know, you got to pick it up a little bit if you want to get there."
Yeah. Well, you look at if you're a professional sports person, you know, if you're a professional football player, netball player, or something like that, the teams will have all these different specialists. They'll have nutritionists on site. They'll have sports psychologists, and you'll meet with them. If you're at the Australian Institute of Sport, you're dealing with sports psychologists. The average person goes, well, there's nothing wrong with me. Why do I need to see a psychologist? You know, we're scared to get that expert help. To go, no, they could teach you how to be mentally stronger. You know, they could give you some tools. How do you think these people that are phenomenal, how do you think they're doing what they're achieving? You know, those Olympic gold medalists, they didn't do that by themselves. You know, that they had coaches, they had psychologists helping them get a better mindset. They had every advantage they could use, every expert they could use help them. And for so many of us in life, we go, oh no, I don't need help. I'm good. It's like, okay, you won a gold medal. What are you achieving? Are you achieving your goals? Do you even have big goals? You know, a BHAG, as you said earlier, the big, hairy, audacious goal, you know, like, do you even have one? It's like, well, really? What are you achieving? So,
yeah. It's so interesting, Danny. Here was I thinking I was going to be talking to you as an athlete, but I'm actually talking to you as a mindset coach. you are a subject matter expert.
Oh, look, it's definitely, and I've even had to say that to coaches I've had, whether, you know, in obstacle racing, I go, oh, look, I'm not the best runner. And, you know, physically I'm not that strong. You know, it's like, well, what's your strength? Well, my mental strength, you know. And to say that to a coach, it's like, I feel a bit funny saying that, but clearly as an athlete, my results exceed my athletic ability, you know, because of my mindset, definitely. I'm not that fit. I'm not that good a runner.
On paper, I should not be able to do this.
That's right.
This doesn't make any sense. We went and had a look at this. They looked at me and they're like, no. Ross Edgley, in his book, The Art of Resilience, he is, and if you see Ross, it's an amazing book. This is this guy who swam around the UK and never been done. I think the only people who had attempted it didn't even get a quarter of the way, not even close. And when they looked at him, these sports physiologists, they said, you know, your hips are too wide, your head's too big, you're way too heavy, you know, you're way too dense. He was a tank. He was short. He was not a swimmer's body. He was muscular. He'd done a lot of resistance training. And as it goes through the early parts of the book, you know, he starts this sort of journey swimming around the UK. And as it goes on, they realize he had some serious superpowers. And the number one superpower was mental toughness. So he actually created a new philosophy called Stoic sports science. And the Stoic philosophers you'd be familiar with, you know, well-known sort of espousers of the art of sort of detaching yourself from your physical situation and detachment and being, you know, mentally strong. And the physical parameters of what you need to do to make sure your body doesn't actually defy the laws of physics and break. So, you know, we talked before we got online about the amount of food that you have to eat. You know, you have to eat food. You know, your body can't function if it doesn't have the calories to work, right? So it was this great book. If you haven't read it, definitely get into it. Art of Resilience. I think you'd relate a lot to that experience and to that journey. But what triggered it for me was that he was the wrong body shape. It was the wrong everything. It was not enough body fat. It was all bad. It was all wrong. Everyone that he met with, all the experts said, can't be done. and I'm assuming that they published the book because he was successful. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. But great example of where you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, which is phenomenal. What are some of the other things that have enabled you to have the success that you have? What are some of the other strategies, practical things that people can implement in their lives to help them to achieve their big, hairy, audacious goals?
Yeah, definitely the circle of people you are with have an impact on that. And, you know, sometimes when people say that, I have to admit, I struggled with that when I was younger and in business and going, no, I'm not choosing my friends because I want to be, you know, for selfish reasons. It's not why I choose friends. I don't care what they've got or that. But there definitely is an aspect to to that, when you start realizing that, no, you do hold yourself back for reasons, and you know, for social reasons. So if you're in the wrong social circle, you're or in a social circle of people that don't do what you would like to do, you're going to end up staying doing what they're doing, if that makes sense. So yeah, definitely. You know, and when I touched on earlier about my son running, you know, the first time he ran like 20 odd kilometers, that was because of the social group I was hanging out with. I wasn't even running that night. He was running with friends of mine. You know, it was, that was my circle of friends. You know, if I said to someone, I had a big weekend, I didn't get much sleep, no one's assuming I'm out drinking. You know, everyone's going, oh, what event were you running, or what training event were you doing, and that sort of thing. So, and most of the friends that I will hang out with, you know, will go and do the same, or you know, a lot of my friends are in business, and you know, that's who I'm spending time with. So you do need to be aware of that, your circle that you're with, and you know, if you want to achieve something, go, you know, if you want to achieve, say, running, then go and find other runners and go and join in with other runners and hang out and realize, oh yeah, they're people too, but they're also people doing what I want to be doing. So it's great.
I found the social pressure was actually real. Going to a 6 a.m. Saturday morning CrossFit class was part of my routine. It's not right now, the gyms are closed and I haven't rejoined, but it was, yeah, it was a routine for a good couple of years in there. And when I didn't turn up, there'd be the question, hey man, missed you on Saturday morning, bro, what's going on? And it's like, I went out. They're like, okay. So you only trained a couple of times last week? Like, it's just this sort of like, oh, okay, all right. You guys don't drink on Friday nights? No, we don't. We go training. We go training on Saturday morning. And it's like, oh, wow, okay. You know, where are you going out this weekend? Oh, yeah, cool. I'm going out to Springbrook, not I'm going out to the Valley. Where are you headed this weekend? Yeah, I'm going to the sunny coast. I'm going to the beach, or I'm going outdoors. And there. So 100% relate and resonate with what you're saying. I found when I've been in the healthiest and in achieving the goals that I wanted to in my life, it's been in proximity to people who are raising, you know, that standard for me, around me. So yeah, and I found it was also happened in reverse. Once I started to elevate what I wanted in my life, once I started to, you know, raise the vibration of what I wanted in my life, I found people stopped contacting me. And I didn't say anything to them. I wasn't cutting them off, but I'd stopped getting phone calls from certain people. And energetically, you know, as my, I don't know if you believe in this, but as my sort of psyche, as my consciousness was starting to orientate to a different thing, bringing a different thing into my realm, into my world, it was that vibration didn't align anymore with people that wanted to go out and recreate and go out and get drunk and party. And yeah, it's sort of a conscious as well as an unconscious thing. It happens at the same time, in my experience.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, that for me, you know, changing from that partying and drinking to going out for a big run tonight, yeah, it does make the other part less attractive to yourself. You know, it's you know, if I go out with friends and everyone's drinking and I'm not, and you know, by 11 o'clock you go, actually everyone's just talking shit. I might as well go home and go for a run in the morning. You know, it's like it's go, okay, I don't need to be there. You know, I can be there, but it gets a point of going, no, I don't need to be here. You know, it's it'd be where you want to be. And like I said, if that's, you know, if it's about being with people that train, or if it's about, you know, your business and wanting to be with people in a similar mindset, you know, there's great people in each culture, you know, in each subset of our culture, you know. So you'll meet great people at the gym. You know, you'll meet great people. If you want to take up a sport, then you'll meet great people that play that sport. There'll be some dickheads in every culture and there'll be great people. So you'll just hang out with the great people in whatever it is you want to do. But if you're hanging out with people that do what you want to do, then it's just so much easier. So much easier and so much more fun.
Yeah, I agree. As soon as it became a social thing, for me, I'm a big social animal, and I think we all are. You know, one of the things I think that we have lost is that social connection. We operate so segregated. You know, our families are smaller. We operate and focus in on smaller households. We're very micro now. You know, when I found myself doing best and happiest and most fulfilled in my life, I've been part of a macro. I've been part of a community, whether that's a gym community or now I run men's circles. And the men in the men's circles that I run, we're all a part of each other's lives. You know, we're meeting once a month around a fire, and you know what was happening with that latest job that you were going for, and what was going on with that lady you were seeing, and we're sharing lives in a bigger community of people, with people who give a shit. And it's not just the guys from work, or it's not just the guys from the gym. It's a bigger community, a deliberate community of people that actually care and actually want you to succeed in life. And whether that's an entrepreneurs group, a mentoring sort of circle, or if it's, as I said, men's circles that I run, deliberate communities of people with like-minded beliefs are a healthy way for humans to be. And a lot of people who are unhappy are also isolated emotionally and socially. They don't have communities of people that they're connecting to. And, I talk a lot about this kind of concept on this program, but the idea that we will go into a gym, concrete box, run on a treadmill facing a wall, watching news about some bad story. We'll go and sit in a concrete box, 20 stories high, and work at a computer sitting down all day. We'll eat lunch out of a plastic box, microwaved, and then go home and look at a screen of other people, or looking at the small screen of how other people are living. And we wonder why suicide's the highest it's ever been. We wonder why mental health is the real challenge. We wonder why people, even though we're more affluent, more successful, have more abundance, I wonder why people are feeling so disconnected and disenfranchised. It's a big part of it, community.
Yeah, for sure. It's always interesting for me. I remember I used to go to China a lot for work and getting to know people there. And I remember having a conversation one time about my mum in her 80s living by herself. And people just looked at me in horror of going, why is she living by herself? I'm going, well, because that's what we do in Australia. And I just say a lot of Western countries, it's like, no, we all want to be independent, It's like, and yes, even our elderly people, no, we don't live with our parents. We left where we were in our 20s and 30s, and it's, people are just like, why? Why would an 80-year-old woman be living? Why isn't she living with you? Why can't she? And I'm going, well, I'm actually one of 7 kids that doesn't live with any of us. And they were just dumbfounded by that. And it's a connection. It's, we're not great at it. We're definitely not great at it.
And we're bringing it back. It's being back in tribe and back in community is part of what we're up to, what we're doing. And it's a beautiful thing that we get to create this online community. There's over 600 people on the Primal Man Project page, and they're all here watching, and they'll catch and watch this video to get healthier, get happier, get more fulfilled in their life. And we're a virtual tribe, but that's the beauty of social media. Social media gets a lot of stigma. Oh, it's a toxic thing, and we're watching other people live. But actually, it's an incredible tool to create communities. This conversation will be broadcast to whomever wants to watch it. And, all the beautiful wisdom that you shared while I was, out my coffee breaks. That's going to resonate with people that we wouldn't have been able to have this conversation with.
Yeah. Look, and I think some people, maybe our generation, we've sort of had the not technology, and then we've had that social media. We've sort of been through both, and I don't know that we've got it right per se. It's interesting to watch kids. My son, he'll be in his room chatting to a mate through Skype.
Yep.
And they do it. It's natural. They'll be doing that, and very much, it's like, oh, when I was a kid, I'd be hanging out at my mate's place. And they're like, they are just hanging out together.
Yeah.
No, they're on Skype. They're doing other things. They might be doing their homework. They might walk out of the room, come back in. And it's like, no, they're just chatting. They're just hanging out.
That's actually beautiful because they themselves.
Yeah, and I just think that they're finding a better way to use it than perhaps people of an old generation that we're still learning. Whereas to them, it's just, no, we're just hanging out because that's what we want to do. They'll get together and hang out.
Well, it's really cool that they literally are connecting their bedrooms. Like, imagine as kids growing up, as you said, you're one of 7.
Yeah, yeah.
You wouldn't have had a moment of privacy in basically your whole life, your young life, and you would have really felt, connected with people and would have felt a part of a whole. My son's an only child, and that's really common. And he wants to play games a lot, but it's not to play the game. It's actually because he's got his iPad over here, he's got his tablet computer on here. He's on the game, and the game's loading. He's actually just Skyping, chatting, interacting. He might be recording a TikTok because he's having a cool conversation. He's connecting. It's not about the game. Literally, the game is there going on, and it's just loading and whatever. And it's the humans.
Yeah, yeah.
He wants the humans.
Yeah, I was telling someone today. We were talking. I think on Joe Rogan just did a podcast with a musician that I don't know well, but I was saying how he just did a live concert on Roblox or
yes.
like a kid's game, and it's like a live concert, and to me it's like, no, it's a game that the kids play. It's like, yeah, but the kids play the game, and they were there because they play it live, and they actually went and saw a live concert on a game. And it's like,
yep.
They're just dealing with technology at a different level to us. I could imagine streaming it on YouTube, but how's a live band playing in the middle of a game? It's like, just to them, it's like, it's just because it's live, it's there, it's happening.
Well, I think all the more reason why we need to be living very consciously in a way that does awesome stuff like you do. Get outdoors and go and challenge yourself. I have a family dashboard that we do all of our goals and all the things that we're doing every day. We check off. Have we drank 2 liters of water? Have we taken our vitamins? Have we read? Have we listened to a podcast and meditated and all that good stuff? And on the bottom was the countdown to the days for when our next Spartan, True Grit, or Tough Mudder event was on. And I take my son, so he runs the kids' versions, and my partner and I are getting into it. And when COVID happened, one of the sad parts about it was, because otherwise COVID was super awesome for us. I created the Primal Man Project at that time. We created a couple of other businesses. It was amazing. One of the sad parts was no more Spartan, no more group events. What are you doing right now? I'm having like a fraction of the FOMO that you must be having, considering how much a part of your life it was. Yeah. What are you doing right now to keep yourself mentally engaged in a goal?
Yeah, I have to admit that part of what happened was also my work needed me a lot more. There was a lot of challenges at work that we hadn't dealt with before. There was, a lot of new rules, a lot of things happening. So
you don't have teleconferences on the event. You're there, like just someone comes up to you, like, running a meeting from the trail. No,
not so much. No. So I have really had to reset at work and face some challenges. So it probably timing wise, it didn't bother me as much that I couldn't be going to an event, but it definitely has an effect. There's and you're getting a bit of this thing where there's some virtual events taking place. There's people on treadmills doing, there's a popular thing happening now, the last man standing. So there's races where you might run, and there's a bloody perfect number created by the guy that created the Barclays Marathon. You might have heard of that. It's the good documentary on it. So the nutcase of a guy that created that has created this last man standing, and basically every person loses this race until the last person that's standing. They're the only one that didn't lose. Everyone else is a loser. And they'll run, I think it's about 6.45 kilometres, whatever it is, every hour. But on every hour, you've got to start another lap.
Mm-hmm.
And you just keep doing that. And so they did a virtual version of that on everyone doing that on treadmills or running around their block. And there's a few races like that. There's a virtual 100-kilometre races and that sort of thing happening. Because I think the Brisbane Trail Ultra that didn't go ahead, they've put on a virtual event. So there's still some cool stuff happening and new stuff that's, you know, you can compete against other people. So, yeah, look, there's different challenges. I've just started to eye off other events that talk of things happening. So, yeah, we'll just have to see what comes of them.
Yeah, very good. That feels like a really good place to wrap up. We're at an hour and a half. I wanted to just do a quick bit of a shout out for what we're up to in the Primal Man Project. I've mentioned a couple of these things during the program, but it's a great way to just finish off and just, I suppose, summarize what it is that we can do and what we're offering. So men's circles every Monday night. So if you're interested, Danny, we do a Zoom call basically supporting men, what's going on in their lives. I think you'd actually be a great addition, somebody that would add a lot of wisdom to the circle. So definitely love to have you along. We're also running a retreat. So I talked about the retreats that we do. We're doing an event called Sharpen the Spear. And it basically is, yeah, as I mentioned, challenging your body in an outdoor environment, getting out into nature. And then as you challenge your body mentally, you start to, you know, feel the effects and start to explore yourself mentally. And then once you get to a place where your emotions actually become involved, it's a great exploration into ourselves. And it's a really powerful day. And so that's next Saturday. For those who are interested, jump onto the Primal Man Project Facebook page under events. And yeah, if any of the concepts that Danny's talked about have resonated around setting goals and achieving things in your life, so aligned with the work that I do in coaching. So really resonate and really appreciate you sharing some of your tools and strategies. I've taken notes. I'm going to be taking and incorporating those into the work that I'm doing with people to help to transition them from where they are to where they want to be in life, which you know it sounds like a really a great testament to what you've done. You know, you've achieved some amazing things, Danny. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up? Anything, maybe parting words of wisdom, something that summarizes all the things that you've learned, maybe in a perfect sentence? Hold on, I'll just drop off the call now.
No, look, I guess, look, don't be scared. Where you are now is no reflection on where you can be. You know, you can change a lot quickly if you've got a goal and you work towards it in anything. So don't set a goal that you can't achieve with who you are now, that you've got to grow into as a person to be able to achieve that goal. That would be, there you go. There's my pearl of wisdom said badly.
That's said amazingly, Danny. That's fantastic, man. I just want to acknowledge you. You have been such an easy guy to chat to, and you've had some incredible wisdom and insights. I just want to acknowledge you specifically around how deeply, you know, you've connected to the experience of being a dad. For me, that resonated really deeply. For me, it's really hit me in the heart. It was that the thing that drives you in these incredible moments of what must be excruciating pain was the love you have for your boys and the way that you want to set yourself up to be an example for them. So I want to acknowledge you as a dad, as a father to a father. It's a beautiful example you're setting, man. I really honor that you're doing, and the work that you're doing in your business and how you approach it. You know, I think those people that are working for you would be very, very lucky to be in an environment set by a man like yourself. So, so I honor you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for spending time with us and for sharing your wisdom, man. It's been such a great chat.
Thank you. And I hope people got something out of it. It's great.
Really cool. Stick around online with me, and we'll end the broadcast together this time when we actually plan. So thanks for dealing with me and the technical challenges. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Hope you've had a great night watching, and catch you again soon. Peace.